All right, good afternoon. Welcome to another edition of Challenges in the Streets, coming at you live here from the Command Lab studios. Today, Captain Machala will be talking to two rail officers about some new Metro equipment coming out to the stations here very shortly. As a gentle reminder, those of you looking for COPDI credit, please make sure you fill out the form on the COPDI website. And as usual, I will be monitoring the YouTube comments, so if you have any questions for the panel, please post them. I'll pass them on. With that, I'm going to turn it over to C-Shift's newest safety officer, Captain Machala.
Thanks, Chief. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Again, this is a normal episode of the Challenges in the Streets, but a little bit enhanced in terms of that we're introducing new Metro equipment. So it's not just a general training video. We're going to kind of get a little bit of a update and overview on Metro operations, maybe some recent changes, and then we're also going to go over the new Metro equipment that'll be coming out, touching on some new Metro maps that'll be coming out with that equipment, hopefully in the next month or so. So joining us to talk about this, we have Captain Mechlin from 30B and Lieutenant Bevard from Company 23 on C-Shift. They're both two of our rail officers. They'll kind of explain a little bit more about what a rail officer does if you don't know how many there are, things like that. Captain Mechlin also has kind of a unique, I guess, perspective, I would say, based on your former position. Could you just talk a little bit about that and your time at Metro and at The Rock?
Yeah. So I spent a little over a year and a half as one of the Rock fire liaisons at The Rock, right? Which is, Metro is basically, if you can think of a flight traffic control tower for an airport, kind of similar to that, right? It runs the whole system for all the stations in the system and all the trains and all that other movement. So I spent a year and a half there, and that was staffed by, when I was there, it was staffed by officers from throughout the COG region. So all 8 departments that have a Metro station in them had representatives there. At the time, it was 2 DC fire captains that were assigned there permanently with me. And then the 4th position was filled by Fairfax. Nobody permanent, but just a rotation of officers.
So I think this is a good time to talk about what the Rock Fire Liaison is, or just the Fire Liaison now, I guess. If you could just touch on briefly, because that has changed a little bit, correct, in terms of where they are, and their function hasn't really changed, but just describe what they do now and how we interface with them a little bit.
Yeah. So the Rock is now called the mick, and there's a lot of acronyms in Metro, just like the fire department. So the mick stands for Metro Integrated Command and Communication Center, and that's a mouthful, obviously, right? So just call it the mick. It moved because the name change resulted from a couple different things. So one, it moved to Alexandria, to a new building, a new facility, which is a lot nicer than the old facility. And then Metro really wanted to they wanted to improve their incident command functions and communication among all their different departments. So they added, like the bus division was never in that same room where I worked. So they added bus in as well. So it's one big room, and if you can pull up the slide, I think it's number 9, or the MIC one. That kind of gives you a kind of an idea of the how big the room is, and that's only a shot of one side of the room. So on one side is rail, and that's the side we're looking at now. On the other side is bus, but in addition to like the rail traffic controllers, which is almost like an air traffic controller for an airplane system, they also have like all their maintenance people there, so people that handle their power systems, their elevators and escalators, the fans as well. The other big additions that occurred when they moved to this new facility is transit police. During normal operating hours, when there's revenue service, is what they call when they're running trains that carry passengers, transit police has a lieutenant or sergeant assigned and sitting next to the Rock Fire Liaison.
It's almost like an integrated, command structure, or
all up
unified
there.
command, almost
yes.
right in that same area. That's cool. Can you just, how do we usually interface with them? And is this like something where these fire liaisons, are they monitoring the radio all the time for calls, or how do they get calls? Do they usually hear about them internally, or?
So they, normally I'd say most of the time they're going to get notified by somebody in that room, from either a station manager or a train operator, right? Sick person on a train, or there's arcing insulator or something along those lines, or the transit police sergeant will notify them, because the transit officers come upon issues from time to time. So you either get a phone call, literally the transit officer will literally lean over and say, hey, do you have this? We also have, if anybody's seen the EMS duty officer workstations with those phone radios, I don't know what the technical term for that is. We've got a bank of radios up there, and we would always be listening to the fire department channels as well. So if you heard a call go out at a Metro station. The newest addition is that there's a computer dashboard that DC Fire and EMS created that can monitor calls close to the system as well. So that's another way to monitor.
Cool. And They're a resource like any other, right? So if you run anything involving the Metro, they may or may not already have knowledge of it, but they can certainly get you other information, right? So Lieutenant Bevard runs something at the Metro tonight. He can call on the radio and ask for it, or how does that?
Yeah, so a couple different options. The primary one I would say, like if you're on Alpha 1 for a normal EMS call, ask ECC, hey, can you have the ROC Fire Liaison or the ROC Liaison come up on 7 Alpha 1 and I need to talk to them. The other option is programmed in the Sonim phones, and I just wanted to make sure I had the right name. It's Metro ROC Fire Liaison is how it's programmed in. That is the direct line to the phone that sits right at that desk. So my suggestion would be like, hey, I'm just trying to find a patient, right? Ask for ECC to have them come up on 7 Alpha 1 and you can talk to them. If you're trying to get some more information, like for example, they have access to all the cameras, they can do video playback. Like you're trying to find out like how did this person get here or they fell or whatever, right? Then that might be something where I would suggest giving them a phone call and have a little more detail.
Yeah, I think that's real important because we're talking about resources that can help you respond to a Metro incident. We're going to talk about the stuff you actually use once we get there, and we have to, whether it's a Metro full assignment, a smoke investigation, when we're actually going down into the roadway and interfacing with the equipment, whether it's elevators, escalators, actual train cars themselves. But all these are helpful resources, right? We talked a little bit before the episode aired. I don't think people understand how many times a day we interface with Metro.
Yeah.
Now, the COG as a whole, I think it's a staggering number, but even in Montgomery County, we just say multiple times a day, maybe.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Between just calls in the stations, whether it's EMS calls. Again, the full assignment is pretty rare, right? But it's still all of these things, whether it's Metro Maps, whether it's the ROC Fire Liaison, all these resources, the maps, the mapping apps or whatever. I'm not sure you're going to talk about that, the Google Map thing, like all that kind of stuff. That's really helpful resources, and we can use them multiple times a day most of the time, right? Not to spend too much time on that, but just another resource, you guys as rail officers, you want to just talk briefly about how many there are, how you're spaced out, what you respond on, and your, I guess, role?
Yeah. Can you guys pull up the slide with the rail team roster? I think it's number 12, and show that to everyone. And Tom, you want to talk about
Sure.
that a little bit? Yeah.
So we have about roughly 5 people per shift, and these are not designated they are designated positions, but they're not necessarily staff. So we could have all 5. We could have 1. Rarely are there none. There's usually at least 1. But we go on to the battalion lineup. There's a section under there where you can find out and see who's listed for the day. And so call comes out. Generally, we may or may not get notified, and by that we get like a active 911 notification. Essentially, sometimes somebody will tell us, somebody will hear it. Whatever we hear on the radio. Usually, like, you hear something about the tracks or something, kind of get tuned into it, and we'll call ECC, we'll call each other, and generally smaller incidents, usually it's the closer one. A major incident, generally whoever's working will respond to there.
Yeah. How many of you respond on the average? Would all, like, if all 5 of you are working, would you all go, or does it just kind of depend?
So, some people may be committed on calls prior.
Sure.
But usually about 2. I would say, roughly about 2.
And if that happens, you guys just take the piece that you're on and just respond with that?
Just
We'll mark up as, like, my rail number is rail 707, so I'll call ECC on Alpha 1 and say, rail 707 on paramedic engine 730 is responding on the call. Usually when we get there with 2 officers responding, it's usually, we don't want to commit all 5, right? Like that's a lot of resources for sometimes smaller calls. One will try to go to the command post, and then one will go to where the incident, like if it's on the platform at the metro station or wherever the heavy rail incident is, to try to help crews and usually actually marry up with you in your new role as another set of eyes, safety officer, subject matter expert type thing. I want to hit the thing that Lieutenant Bevard mentioned. For those that don't know, right, the battalion roster or battalion lineup, right, where we do our riding assignments for the day. And this involves all the special ops stuff. Right, if you go down to I think it's under Battalion 5, you cycle through the battalions and go to Special Ops, and you can pick rail, swiftwater, hazmat, and that's a good way for you when you're on an incident or you're sitting in the office. I know the battalion chiefs typically do it. They'll look and see, hey, we fill that in for each team, and they'll look and see who's my point of contact, right, or who can I call and who's working where. So if you're on an incident, pull that up on your phone. That's a good way to find out who's the closest one.
And is anything else aside from the incident response and that you guys do, or I mean, like for training or whatever, if I want to do a metro drill at my station, that's something I could just reach out to one of the rail officers working that day, or and like just, or if I just had a general question. I mean, I'm assuming I could ask any of the rail officers, and they'd probably be able to guide me in the right direction, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, so for a general question, usually if you go under there and then you call that station, talk to that rail officer. But if you wanted something more or less for like your station, your shift, something like that, to the new thing under quick links.
Yeah,
right?
we've got a formal process to request training, which we'll probably hit at some point, or we can hit now if you want, through Metro, through one of Metro's reps. Or I think what you're getting is more like a company level, informal type drill, which I think any of us, I mean, we were just talking about before we started, about, you know, like I get calls all the time about going over maps. I'm happy to, I know me personally, I'm happy to do that. You know, like it's
good for us too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I'm sure. I think it might be worth mentioning now because I know this is probably going to spur a lot of people to be like, oh, hey, let's go do a metro drill. Or we have this new equipment. We have these new maps. We just watched this episode. Maybe let's go out to the metro station our first do and do a walkthrough, right? So I know that's gotten people hemmed up before, right? Not that anybody has any ill intent, but when you go past the end gates, you're trespassing in the roadway, right? And if you don't tell anybody about that, that's a problem. So can you just go over, again, I think you kind of just mentioned it, but the process of, hey, I want to go do a drill at my local metro station, whether it's the walkthrough or I want to check out some of these restricted access rooms, you know, past the end gates. How do I do that? I want to do a tunnel walk maybe. How do I arrange that, aside from the battalion chiefs organizing?
Yeah, so I'll say the first thing, if you want to go to your station, I think it's good, right, especially if one's in your first do, if you have multiple, go out there, get familiar with them, see where some of these different things, look at the map, right, try and see where some of these ancillary rooms and things like that are. But pretty much if a civilian can't go there, we can't go there, at least with not some sort of authorization. So if you do want to go through there, under the quick links tab, you can go through there, and it takes a little back and forth with Metro to make sure they have personnel and then we have personnel. I think they're pulling it up there.
Yeah, it should be if you are probably watching, I think you're watching it right now, a kind of a screen capture of where on quick links it is. So you go to operations, then operations section under special ops, and it's Metro training requests, and there's some notes in there, the process on how to do that. The biggest thing is coordinate with your battalion chief, just because of you know, the doc log is always jammed full of different activities. We want the battalion chief is the one to fill out the form, and it's a jot form. It goes to myself. It's the reason Lieutenant Bevard is on here today to kind of talk about that stuff, and Captain Riley. So we have one per shift to kind of manage that, and then we will work with Metro. The biggest suggestion is please give us dates that are at least a month out, and that's on the form because it just takes some time to schedule that with them. When we get a reply back from them, you know, accepted, not accepted, right, the battalion chief and the captain, the way the form works, it'll kick back to them. It'll say accepted, you know, and then some notes on like, hey, your first date was good or second date was good. The battalion chief can actually, we try to streamline this based on Chief Blinkhorn's suggestion. The battalion chief, in their email that they get a link that goes to is it the activity request jot form to add to the apparatus calendar. So they'll get a link to that, and some of that stuff that you've already submitted is already pre-filled out for you to make your job a little bit easier.
So basically, as a company officer, just go through battalion chief and they'll work through that process to get you in those areas.
If you have some sort of topic or plan, and there's a list of things on there, but Metro's been pretty accommodating for the most part as long as they have personnel, and especially if it's in advance at 30 plus days. But it's definitely some good training. We've gotten
No, I think that's super helpful.
things.
So I just know this is going to spur people wanting to do more of that, just like
sure.
you know, it always is. That's when a topic comes up or a change takes place, new equipment or whatever. So that's good to know. Where do you want to go from here? Do you think you want to start going over some of these new why this stuff is coming out and when it's going to be out and what it is? And we should roll into that to make sure we have enough time. So.
Yeah, so we, COG got a grant to get new chocks, new bags, some other stuff. The thing that you see to my left here is what's called the Metro tool, which Metro builds these, so they were able to convince Metro to build a bunch of them for the fire departments as another tool for us to have. So we got issued the bags. If you want to pull up the slide with the inventory compared to the old inventory, and we'll kind of talk about a couple of things there. So we removed a couple things, like the paint cans, the marking pens, The lights, right? The flashlights, right? You know,
yeah, the D-cell ones.
Yeah, the old D-cell lights, right? Just because we kind of looked at it, we talked to a bunch of the different rail officers, kind of other SMEs, and tried to come up with a logical inventory to kind of consolidate. The bag itself, which I can pull up here, right, is the nice thing about the bag compared to the old ones is it's an actual like work bag, right, that has a zipper, so everything should stay in it, which is going to be really pretty good. Compared to the old bags with the Velcro kind of wore out as they got older. So let's probably move into the videos of the kind of show the
and these
chocks.
bags basically they're going to be issued everywhere there's a current Metro bag. Correct?
Yes,
Basically,
yeah,
it's going to be a clean
Yep.
swap.
Yep.
1-for-1 swap.
Okay, and because some of the things you said from the old bags are going to the new bags. So just for the people wondering, right, I think it was really important just from a personal aspect that we put this episode out prior to the equipment coming out. We actually wanted the equipment out, but not in use, right? And then do this, that way everybody can have their hands on it while they watch. But the good thing is you can always go back and watch this, right, once you do get this. And the reason that couldn't be done was because some of the things have to be switched from the old bag into the new bag, so that all has to take place at once.
And we need to take the old stuff back as well, so it's going to be probably about like a battalion thing. Either one of the rail officers is going to be coming out, or a light duty person will figure that out. Basically, the next month or two is where we're hoping to start. Cool. And just exchange 1-for-1 exchanges with everything. So.
All right, good stuff. Yeah, if you want to go into whatever piece you want first, or videos, or however you guys want to work that.
Yeah, let's. Yeah, we can probably just roll the videos with. Let's start with the chocks. I think that was the order that we had.
Okay.
So there's two sets of chocks in the bags, right? This is the first set. These are going to be meant for metro cars and then also heavy rail. And then you see this second chock, which is called like the wedge by the manufacturer. This was meant for the purple line. It also, what I will say is, both sets of chocks, after I called the manufacturer, I actually got to talk to the CEO, who's also an engineer. If you guys want to pause the video for a second, we'll talk about a couple things here. I'll show the chocks in person. But all these chocks are meant for, they can work on heavy rail. We haven't tested this set yet on, I'm sorry, we haven't tested this one. And this one was meant for the upcoming purple line in a couple of years, but we have not tested this on a metro car or a heavy rail car. However, talking to the CEO and the engineer who kind of designed all this stuff, and the way it's listed on the website, this will work on a heavy freight rail car or a metro car as well. But the point of this one compared to these is that if you guys can see, everyone can see out here, right, basically this will sit on an exposed rail, which is pretty much all the metro system, right? It's going to have an exposed rail. Whereas this, the reason they bought this one, COG wanted to get one meant for the purple line is, as you all know, the purple line, anyone that works in 1st or 2nd Battalion, purple line is going to go actually through the street, right? And there's going to be sections where the rail is actually basically kind of in the concrete there. And so this can sit right on top of the rail and make that work. As far as the chocks meant for metro, basically they come as a set. So we worked with the manufacturer, and there's a rubber cord that goes in between. Normally they're kind of orientated like this, and they're all one piece. So that made them very bulky. They didn't fit in the bag. And then my other concern was, like, if you're at a platform, right, you're trying to put a set of these chocks down, the handles are great to keep your hands out of there, but there may be a time where the handles are going to be, right, they're going to be in the way. So he was able to basically give us an exemption to take the cord off. And basically then how they're going to sit in the bag is they're just going to be a part like this, and you can put the handle in to help you put the chock next to the wheel. Or honestly, if it's clear and you're okay with it, you can put the chock right in there. So can you guys, let's go back to the video maybe, and we'll kind of, I think we hit most of, everybody saw. If you guys want to go back to the video of the chocks, we'll run through that real quick, and then we'll kind of move on to the metro tool. So you can see that's actually at the light rail facility in Linthicum. And I wanted to just kind of try to start testing all these with kind of every type of train we could encounter, just to see if they would work. And I was happy to say that they worked just fine.
Any differences on, like, recommendations for chocking cars in terms of, like, we have a full metro train how many sets should we put down? One on either side of the wheel, on the front, back, like which end?
I'm actually really glad you brought that up because it's not really covered in the IRP. I think the IRP kind of just says one set of chocks. That's kind of what we've always taught. I think we should probably move towards. I would suggest a better practice would be chalking on either end of the car, kind of like how we put facades down on, if we have like a person struck at a platform, right? Probably going to put a facade down on either end of where we're working just to make sure that the third rail is covered. I would also say a set of chocks on either end, and that's fine if it's the car that's the most like exposed, basically the last one in the line. Tom, would you? I mean,
yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, we don't really stress that, and I think maybe we'll probably adjust that, consider adjusting that at some point. But I think that's best practice would be
that makes sense. If we're all bringing our bags anyway, we have them there.
Yeah, so if you're going to have a second facade going to the opposite side, you're going to have a fresh bag with a set of chocks in there as well.
Yeah.
So.
Cool. All right, anything else you guys want to touch on the new chocks? And I'm assuming there's a full set of the smaller chalk in there, or is there one
so
or
there's
two?
only one.
Only
so
one.
that's
Okay.
So and that's actually where we
may
in the future, right? We may, if we're going to test this on metro cars and heavy freight, at some point we can get into like the Mark facility up in Baltimore, and if that works, then maybe when we go to replace these, we may just use. Obviously, this is an integrated handle. It's a little bit smaller, a little bit lighter. Maybe that's what we'll go with. So
We'll see.
We'll see where it goes. And I would actually ask everyone, as you guys are doing, you all are doing drills out there, right? Or you're doing stuff, right? And you're using these chocks, please let us know, like, hey, this worked or this did not work, and
cool.
Take the input, right? And adjust as we need to.
All right. What do you want to move on to next? So I think we've covered chocks.
I guess the
Metro tool,
right?
I think. Yeah, if you guys want to play.
That was a video.
Actually, hold on. Pause that real quick, and we'll just hold it up right and talk about it a little quick. So this is a tool. It's called the Metro tool, made by Metro. So these were issued out to all the fire departments. It's got a bunch of universal uses. What I would tell you is a lot of these, and you'll see as we kind of show this. This is designed and made by Metro, right, for a Metro employee. So like they don't have a lot of the fire department tools, right? So it was kind of designed that like you're down and kind of a universal tool that you'll use for a bunch of different options of things. So we carry, a lot of our fire department tools, we carry things that will work instead of this. But this is a nice addition. There are a couple of unique things that we don't have currently, so that'll be nice to have. But that's just kind of the background of it. So go ahead and play. So first one, this is, just pause that while I talk about this real quick. This is the like an escalator access point, right? There's a pit underneath there. So on the tool itself, it has a flathead screwdriver. There's screws that are in each one of those panels. Like I said, that's one of the things that, right, we all have a flathead screwdriver on our fire truck. You could use that instead, but it's just one option to do that. You can hit play.
That just shows it in use.
And that's basically down at Bethesda Metro, and then you can kind of see an idea of a similar escalator system, right? A pit where maybe you would have to access if trash got down there. And when I was at the Rock, we had a couple fires like in trash pits of escalator, elevator pits. Also, if somebody gets trapped in there, that's one way to access that, to start taking those panels apart to remove them. So this is a hatch. It's a maintenance hatch right outside Bethesda Metro, right at the top of the really long escalators. And thank you for, some of these videos were done by me and Firefighter Anderson. Some of these were done by Station 6 personnel, Captain Smith and his shift, so we appreciate you all volunteering. But basically that's a square end of the tool. You drop it in, and a quarter turn, it releases that latch on that hatch, and you can get in there. This is an emergency exit shaft. This one, I think, is Friendship Heights, but I could be wrong. Or it might be Bethesda. I'll know when I see the personnel.
They're all fairly similar.
So this is Bethesda. So this is an emergency exit hatch that is built into the sidewalk. So because of that, the way to get in, they built like a flush-mounted circular piece of metal there, if you can see. So that end of the tool, you drop it in there, you rotate, just unscrew it like a screw. That comes out. Now you've got a metal wire that releases, that's the mechanism to release the hatch. What's nice about this tool is, like I said, multi-purpose, right? You can kind of drop it as you saw in there and pull up, and that's pretty helpful. So this exit shaft is just north of Friendship Heights Station. So the differences are, this one is kind of out of the normal public where they're walking, right? This is back up on a little bit of a hill. So that's where they have that plate, and then you've got that padlock access. The quadruple zero key is what will open that lock. If you guys can see, there's a metal ring in there, right? You can either pull the pull chain, right, just with your hand, or I think the next part of the video will show. That's just an easy way to capture that and pull that and release that mechanism. So both emergency exit shafts, just in different locations. This one that we're looking at now is in a sidewalk. There's a coffee shop right there. It's downtown Bethesda. The other one that we just saw is more like up off out of the sidewalk. A good common practice here, I'm glad we have this in here. There's a safety bar. Please put that in to keep both the hatches open and so to prevent people from walking along and falling in there. Just anybody that hasn't been in an exit shaft in a while, right? You can also walk up if you're down in the tunnel, right? And now you've got to make your way out. You push that bar that they showed in the video. That'll release it, and you can get out. So that's obviously good to know. This is another one that's buried in the sidewalk, and this is another use of the square end of that tool. It's a quarter turn. You drop it in there and do a quarter turn, and it'll release the locking mechanism and open that hatch up.
Now, in this one, is there like a clear area where to insert that, or is that just like?
You should be able to see it here. I think they're going to show it. Yeah. It's not,
I've never personally
from standing, you probably wouldn't see it. You probably need to kneel down and take a look, but you will be able to see it through those grates.
Where it fits in, okay.
Yeah, it's not obvious by all means. That's a very good point to bring up.
Okay. Should have known you were prepared with the close-up.
That's all the AV club, man. They're great at what they do. Another use, this is kind of a very good example, right? I think all of us in the fire department, right, we're going to use a Haugen probably to get a manhole cover off. But, for whatever reason you don't have one, and it's a good option to use, right? You've got it in the bag. As you saw, that's on the platform. That is just a standpipe connection from one of the standpipe connections on the platforms.
Cool. All right. I mean, I don't know. You guys have anything else to add with the Metro tool itself? I mean, that's going to be a new one, right?
No.
We don't currently carry that, so that's going to be a new addition to this new bag.
Yeah, I don't really have anything to add to it besides the videos.
Yeah, I don't
Seeing
think,
it explains it pretty well.
Yeah.
If people want to practice with that, is that something they can go out and just do? I mean, obviously, we don't want people entering vent shafts or anything like that.
Yeah, don't enter. Once you go in that vent shaft, you are in the roadway technically, so you've got to have permission to do that. However, I think it's perfectly acceptable to practice like operating those locking mechanisms, right, or using that tool on the outside on the sidewalk.
Right, as long as we're not entering the system.
Yes, yeah. By all means, please go practice with
I mean,
it.
something that I'm sure people want to do. So again, using caution, make sure you don't actually enter the system.
Yes,
but
yeah.
it's the tools that were provided. So.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. What else we got?
What do you want to move on to next?
We're a little over halfway, just for your timing.
Cool. Thank you.
Purposes.
I guess some maps, right?
Yeah, let's. Actually, that's a good segue. Yeah.
Metro maps are always popular.
Yeah. If you guys can just bring up that, yep, that first shot there, show the audience. So Metro is kind of the reason, one of the reasons this is going to end up working out perfectly with timing-wise, right? When we exchange the bags, we're also going to give you guys new maps as well, new Metro maps. It's nothing really changes as far as how they're laid out or anything. It's just like various updates, right? And the perfect example of this is the picture everybody's looking at. So White Flint Metro Station is no longer White Flint Metro Station. It's North Bethesda Metro Station. That changed, I think, what, Tom?
Probably 2 years ago.
2 years ago, right?
Very classy.
Yeah. And there are, I mean, that overhead view, right, that you all are looking at on the screen did get updated a little bit, right? I'm sure the lieutenant can attest to the amount of building construction that's going on.
I don't think they can keep up with it.
So that stuff is changed, right? There were some errors over the years, that have not been caught. And Metro is constantly updating these maps. It's just they finally got to the point where there was enough changes to push out an update. So that is new and coming. You will see, there was some emails last week. So, and this is something that I think just worthy of mentioning, right? You can also get to these maps on the MDC. I think it's a Microsoft Edge like shortcut, and it says Metro Maps.
It's on the desktop, and then I think it's also under the files. If you bring that up and go through there, you can pull it up. It's nice because you can click, like you can get the overview kind of like that, and say you want to go to Glenmont, you just click that station, it brings you right up to there, and you can zoom in and go all through it. Yeah, so those, I mean, I still get people, and I just don't think we ever really publicized it, right? It is on the MDC, so if you don't have the maps or you need to do something else, right, that is an option. I looked yesterday, it still said White Flint Metro Station, but we're working with Metro's IT and our IT section to get that updated as well. That should be, I'm hoping next couple of weeks that'll get updated as well. So
cool.
Yeah, so when they come out, especially if it's in your first due, look at it. Go out. It'd be a good time to walk through the station, see if the fire department connections are in the right place, the hydrants, various things that change throughout time, or that maybe they an omission putting them in the new maps. It'd be a good time to see if everything's correct, and if you find it incorrect, get in contact with one of the rail officers. And might be 5 or 10 years before it's ever fixed, but at least we'll know about it. Yeah, we'll forward it over to Metro, to Michael Ryman and his group, the Office of Emergency Preparedness, and try to get that updated for everyone. So at least the electronic version is correct.
Is this the new, are these the new maps?
Yeah, so this is a set of the new maps. I had it set to North Bethesda, but we kind of talked about that already.
So they're going to look the same, and I noticed, I remember last time there was a map update, they came very similar to this, or as a system-wide Metro map, right? So can you talk about that and like how we filter that down, if we filter that down? And
yeah, so obviously this is everybody can tell probably this is a gigantic book, right? That really would be impractical for like day-to-day operations. So we take out everything but the red line and leave that in there. And that's how like the current maps that we were issued occur. So that's, and that's kind of so you can also carry it. You're on a fire alarm, right? And you bring it down with you if you happen to do that. A lot easier, right? This thing is just, it's too much, right? So yeah, we'll take out everything but the red line when it gets issued, and that'll be also a one-for-one swap. The old maps need to come back to Metro, so they can. That's a security thing for them. But I think this is a good, this book is a good demonstration of, when we kind of talked about the mick and the rock fire liaison and what that position up there, and really everybody in Metro, right, is dealing with a system that is pretty massive, right? 8 jurisdictions, 96, 97 stations, right? This huge thing of maps. So a lot of them can't be experts at every one, right? So that's kind of when you're asking for an update and they're having to look something up, right? That's why, right?
Yeah, I think the last time the update came out, if I remember, we actually at the station whittled them down to red line only.
Did you take them? Okay.
But the more I think about that now, I don't know who really is more just, again, general conversation, which is why I like having these and doing this format, because we're just talking. I don't know who makes that decision or who is ultimately going to do that, but I would say maybe consider at least talking to the officers at like 2, 12, 1 or whatever, keeping the green line, because it's a very real possibility, right? If they're AOR or whatever, you run West Hyattsville, Greenbelt, or anything like that. If it's Metro Fulls, it might not be a bad idea to keep for at least some of those stations.
That's a logical suggestion. I would agree with that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's easy.
Okay, cool. Anything else on the Metro maps? Tom, you got anything else you want to add? And that'll be done at the same time? You guys
Yeah,
say?
yeah, we'll do one-for-one swap
Okay.
with everything. I think that makes the most sense. And that actually will be a good thing, like what you're talking about, right? When we're at 2 or 12 or 1 or whatever, like, hey, like let's leave some of these sections in and take the others back, so.
Chief, do you have any questions or anything like that in the chat yet? Okay. All right, let's move on. What else we got?
We could kind of go back and kind of talk about some other Metro system updates, maybe. I think that's probably good, yeah.
Anything else in the bags? And we're content with the bags, right? Everything else, just for everybody's curiosity, everything else is going to stay, correct?
Yeah, that's
equipment-wise. If you want to just hit that before we move on to a new
Thank you.
subject.
Yeah. A couple other additions, right? A smaller bolt cutters. I'll hit that in a second because it's kind of a more complex answer. Pry bar, I think that's pretty self-explanatory, like those escalator and elevator pits, right? That'll be a good thing. Just a couple of spring clamps to keep, like, basically door chock, right? To keep Metro doors open right when you open them up. Utility knife for the zip strips on the windows on the older style cars. Just remember the 7000 series cars do not have that, but still there's still the Legacy series cars out there, so that'll be for that, and anything else you can use a utility knife. Brush is the same. Glow sticks are the same. We took out the other thing I forgot to mention.
Triage tags.
Thank you. Yeah, triage tags. We just kind of I talked to the EMI.
We're supposed to be bringing the trauma care kits anyway, right?
Yeah.
So
So
why
got
would
them in
duplicate?
there.
Yeah,
Makes sense.
They requested to keep the triage ribbons in, which one, it's a lot smaller of a piece of equipment, and two, like I kind of get that, right? You got to do some rapid triage, but the tags, right? Like you said, we're carrying the trauma care bags. We're not really going to be doing that on the train, probably per se, if that's where we end up with one of these bags.
Right.
So it's just, yeah. The bolt cutters, what has occurred is there are some ancillary rooms in Metro, and this is something that I caution everyone with. Where multiple entities of Metro might be locking stuff up, right? It's really more of like they've got a fence up right in a room, and they're locking things up. So there might be different locks on there, like padlocks. So if you have to get in access into that area, that would be one thing to use this for.
Like maybe facility maintenance people have a maintenance
Yeah.
cart inside of a locked like cage kind of thing or something.
Yeah, and you've got to get in there. What I caution everyone on, and maybe Lieutenant can kind of talk about this, right, is when you don't have access to something in Metro.
There's a reason.
I'll let you kind of.
Yeah,
It's
I mean, pretty much that hits it right. So we have keys that gets us into a lot of different areas, especially areas under emergency. But there's some even in emergency that we're just not going to go into, right? Like anything from tie breaker stations, traction power substations, some of their electric rooms and things of that nature down in the tunnel. They're locked out and we can't get in there. And a lot of times even various Metro folks, they don't have keys to get in there, right? So if we can't get in there, there's probably a really good reason that we shouldn't be in there, even if there is a fire, right? It's probably some sort of electrical thing that with nothing else in there that can burn, and we should probably stay outside from it, right?
Yeah, really good point. Not everything is a critical emergency, right? Just because we're dispatched emergency does not necessarily make it an emergency when we get there for us to handle anyway, right? Without somebody who really knows what they're doing.
Yeah, and there's a reason for that, right? It's a highly dangerous place in there, and
we don't have arc flash protection. We don't have anything like that's not our game.
Yeah, our role from it is identify where it is and start working through the steps of shutting down that power, right? That'll likely fix this situation.
So let's hit. I mean, this is the other reason I wanted you on here, right? I mean, besides this. Make me look better. Yeah, exactly, right? You saw the videos, right? I'm not a hand model, right, from a couple of those videos. So, can you, the AV people, can you pull up the picture of the burned up electrical box? So this is I guess a little bit of a case study. I talked about this in the first COLA class. I lectured about like some Metro stuff with. I actually created a training tidbit for Chief Blinkhorn on this one. So this was a call we had. It started as an automatic fire alarm. I was actually working as the fire liaison in the ROC. Station 3 gets there. And there's a couple things, right? We hit the maps, kind of related to all this stuff, right?
We don't have any electrical box. It was never sent.
Oh, okay. Slide 18. It's right after the end of platform and fire equipment cabinet. While they get that going.
There it is.
There we go. So this was a remote facility, right? So it's tied into Rockville Metro Station, right? And you might get dispatched if the address gets called in wrong or gets confused, right? You might get dispatched to actually the Metro Station, but this is a building on Rockville Pike, south of the Metro Station, gets called in as a fire alarm. Station 3 gets there. Thankfully, the crews there had run the building before, right? So they were a little bit familiar with it, right?
Yeah. And it's got some sort of marking of Metro on there. I think it's a small sign that says like Metro facility or something. Like it's not broadcasted, but if you've been around that area, you should be familiar to know that it's.
Did it like address properly, like on the station annunciator with the room number and everything, so they could go
So-
to the Metro
so
map
basically
and
it's
figure out
just,
where it was?
it's-
I've had that happen before too, where it was.
Yeah.
I think actually the traction power substation or something like that outside Silver Spring got dispatched to Silver Spring
There's
Metro,
one, yes.
and you
Yeah.
look it up, and then you see
it's
it.
down
If you
the
look at
road.
the map, it's down the roadway,
Yes.
300 yards or whatever it is.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, this is a little bit different because this is a building that sits, I think it's like right next to AutoZone.
And a mattress
It's right there
store
at
or
like
something.
First
Yeah.
Street and 355, right in that area. But it's just a brick building with a roll-up door, and I think maybe one or two people doors that walk through there. Nothing else, no windows, no anything. With like some sort of Metro sign on there. But it's got a pretty good address. You pull up, you can definitely tell it's the building. So they got there, and I don't remember how they got into the building.
So they didn't. So I called them on the radio and
Okay.
on Alpha 1 and said, hey, we got a fire alarm. We have no reports of anything. And they actually had power people from Metro working,
Okay.
I think at Rockville Station or something. And they were like, hey, they're going to be there in like 10 or 15 minutes. Can you please just wait, wait, which is what the IRP says, right? And that's why it says that. These types of buildings don't go in, right, unless you have a reported life safety thing. And that's actually another good point to bring up, right? In the Rock, like power personnel, when they go into these buildings, they call up there and say, hey, I'm going into this building, this room to do this work for 2 hours with this person and this person, right? So we had no reports.
accountability.
Yeah, we had no reports of any of that, right? There was nobody that was supposed to be working there. So I told them that. They go on the scene and they call me on the radio and say, hey, there's nothing evident. I'm like, cool, right? It's probably just a fire alarm, whatever, right? Well, the power person gets there, has the key, opens the door, and smoke starts coming out. So thankfully they called back and said that to us. I think at that point you heard it, right? And
Yeah, I heard it, and
responded.
it ended up just showing up there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And basically at the end of the day, right, and you guys saw from the picture, right, it's a decent sized building. Smoke's come out of this thing, right? It took a little while to figure out the feeds from Pepco to remove power to that completely. Once they finally did, the fire went out. I think as far as fire department involvement, I think we used a fan or two to just kind of ventilate. And you all saw from the picture, right, it was a small electrical box in there. It wasn't even any of the big power stuff. So once again, right, it was kind of the thing where this is the right thing actually to do is just stand by and be prepared, but not, I don't want to say not engage, but wait until we can get power removed and then figure out what's going on. Right. So
Yeah. Again, that was a place where we don't have keys to, right?
Yeah.
So prime place for us not to be in.
Absolutely. Makes sense. All right. You want to, I think we covered all the stuff with the bags, access. That was really good. Sidebar and access. You said there's some other updates.
yeah, let's go to, if you guys, if they could pull up slide 16, the Metro system updates. The picture on the left on your screen is just an interlock, and this is not really an update, but this is medical center looking towards Bethesda, and I get questions from time to time like, hey, what's an interlock, right? And this is where Metro has the ability to basically switch from track 1 to track 2 the trains, right? And this is how they can reroute trains around incidents, or they have track repairs going on.
So when they say they're single tracking.
Yes, yes. So that's a good picture, and I think the thing I want to hit, because I know command officers are watching this, right? If you hear like, hey, this is involving the interlock, or you look on the maps, right? That's where you're looking, and that's where the incident is according to chain markers. Like, just realize there's a lot going on here. There's 2 tracks. There's 2 more tracks that are intersecting, right? There's probably third rail all over the place. There's probably 8 sections of third rail.
So I ran the one at Glenmont. I think we had 10 wasads down. I think that's what it ended up being.
So just understand, right, it might take the crews that are working here a minute or two to get kind of wasads down, get themselves situated.
Any other safety considerations with airlocks? Has multiple sections of third rail, actual switches. what about that?
Yeah, you
in
can,
consideration. Can we use those? Especially that smaller one. Can we use that to
Yeah, you can
chock a
chock,
switch?
yes, yeah.
Is that still a practice that we?
It's in the
should be
IRP
doing?
still. I would think so, just because those things are remote operated. I would say the biggest thing is afterwards, please make sure that Metro knows that you did that, because if they try to activate, they're going to damage a bunch of
Their
equipment there.
equipment,
Yeah,
gotcha.
and that's going to cause that stuff to be.
And obviously, if we've done everything we're supposed to do, if we've notified and everything else, that shouldn't happen.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
another
If
layer of
if
safety.
we're down in the roadway, they're going to be involved for sure.
Yeah. Okay.
The picture on the right there, if you pull that back up, so that's the new fare gates to prevent like fare jumping. And if you see, this is Bethesda Metro last night. I took a picture of this. And so here, there's a couple things I want to bring up with this. One, you could theoretically get somebody stuck right in between that fare gate, right where that thing comes all the way across. I don't think it would really probably be an issue more than just some manual pry bars, really maybe like the hydro ram or something to get somebody out of there. I think it's probably going to break pretty easily to remove them. But the other big issue that the system has been having is if people try to fare jump, and you can see, if everybody can picture this is the mezzanine above the roadway, above the platform. So people trying to go around the fare gates, and they've had several instances where they end up falling from the mezzanine down to the roadway. And this kind of ties back into the fire liaison, right? If you show up and you're like, and this person is in the roadway, and people are saying, hey, they appeared out of nowhere, right? Like, where'd they come from, right? The fire liaison can go back in the videotapes and play back and see, like, oh yeah, this person fell from the mezzanine 10, 15, 20 feet. Like, this is a trauma we need to, right?
Yeah.
It's not just a standard, like they fell off the platform, so. Next picture, which we can pull up, if you want to show, is something Metro's been adding. Basically, so this is really helpful for us. At the end, they realized there was an issue, right? At the end of every platform, they are now marking track 1, track 2, right? And to me, that's the most important thing. You have to know track 1 or track 2, which track it is. Because if, like you were talking about, Capt. Machala, about single tracking, and they're going to single track on the other track, and you got that wrong, now the train is coming in on the track that you were talking about.
I mean, that's something that's always messed me up, the track 1, track 2 thing.
Yeah.
Especially on the red line.
Yeah, because it's a U, right?
Yeah.
So this is
One's outbound, one's inbound.
Right.
Yeah,
depending on which side you're on.
Yeah.
If this helps, this is Lieutenant Crimer came up with this, right? If you can think of the red line and think of it like the Capitol Beltway, like inner loop and outer loop. The outer loop is track 1 and the inner loop is track 2. If that helps, just a little tip. But yeah, please, you've got to know track 1 or track 2, and this is one of the ways now that you're going to be able to identify that. The picture on the right is the fire equipment cabinet at Bethesda on the mezzanine level, so a floor above the platform. So I think a couple of emails got sent out, and I just wanted to hit this again, that they had some issues with the EMS equipment that was at the end of the platforms in those big metal cabinets. And so they wanted to remove them kind of out of that area. So now they're stored there. So that is, if you go down there, all of a sudden you think you need some EMS equipment, some extra stuff, right? It's not going to be at the platform anywhere. It's going to be up on the mezzanine or in a fire equipment, what they call fire equipment cabinet room. So.
All right.
Yeah, I think it's.
I got 2 things
Go
from
ahead,
me.
Chief.
From me, not the chat. One, can you just give an idea when this equipment is going to be passed out and confirm which units are going to be getting it? Secondly, from your experience at the mick/rock, can you explain to the unit officers that are showing up to these Metro calls looking to gather information on the call, who they might run into, i.e. the station manager, rail supervisors, police officers, etc., what level of information they may be able to provide, right? Because I know some, for example, station managers aren't the best resource versus the information you're getting over the radio from the Rock.
So equipment-wise, all this stuff should be coming out to every frontline unit, so engine, truck, and squad in the county. And I think we have enough to do some of like the reserve squads, right? We've got the county reserve squads or the Bravo engines. I think we're going to try to outfit as well. I think we'll have enough. Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Just making sure.
Maybe we can get some on one of the boats too.
Oh, we already. Okay.
To the chief's second question, so to me, I'm probably a couple parts here, right? So on the way there, your best source of information is the rock fire liaison or the rock liaison is the radio designator on the tactical talk group as you're going. They should be coming up and giving you a lot of stuff, right? The way I would usually do it is I would try to wait until I heard the first engine checkup and the battalion chief, and then start giving them out like, hey, train movement, fans, smoke, what's going on, right? When you get there, so as far as a plan, like what Metro's plan is, probably still, especially now with the way that those rooms are set up at the MIC, your best source of information for like, hey, how is Metro going to deal with this is probably going to be through that fire liaison, because on the other side of that transit police officer that's there it's called Metro 1, which is the overall supervisor of the whole room of kind of the day-to-day operations of the system, and that's staffed 24/7. They obviously carry a lot of weight. It's like the shift chief, right? So they are going to be the ones kind of probably giving the ultimate say, like, hey, this is the plan we're going to go with. So that's going to be, especially for the incident commander's chief, I think that's going to be your still best source of information for the plan as far as that goes. For unit officers, when they're walking in, right, and like an EMS call, right, like a station manager, if they're there with that person, I think they're going to be a good source of information on the scene as far as, hey, this person came up and talked to them and told them, hey, I'm sick or I fell or whatever. But once again, right, we're just talking about like closed circuit TVs and footage. They just had this person walk up to them and tell them something, right? You might not be able to fully determine what's going on, and that might be something, once again, you call the fire liaison.
And likely they don't know anything.
Yeah,
right. So you get there and they're just as surprised to see you as everybody else is. So.
Yeah, and that's a good if for everyone that's watching, right? If it comes in from a 911 caller, like somebody a citizen on the platform calls, I saw an argument, so they're not going to say that, but they just call 911, right? It's going to go to Montgomery County ECC.
Right.
We're not going to, but if I'm working up there still every once in a while, right? We're not going to know about it up there, so. We're not going to have any clue until maybe you all let us know or ECC calls. Just like what the lieutenant was talking about with station managers. So yeah, that's kind of, I would say use all your sources, right, when you're going down and investigating a little bit. Transit police officers, they get dispatched pretty quick, but that's kind of that same thing of like they have their own 911 center that serves the whole system. So they might know what's going on. You might walk down there and they're down there because it's part of their patrol detail. And they don't have a clue, right? They haven't been told yet, it hasn't been dispatched yet.
Well, it's the same thing if, we run a full assignment at Bethesda or whatever, and you're the units that go to medical center, and you walk in the kiosk and talk to the station manager and ask them what's going on, like, what are you talking about?
Yeah,
like, they literally have no idea.
Yeah,
I've seen that similar scenario happen before. So,
yeah, and they're listening to a different radio channel than like what I was talking about, those rail traffic controllers and the train operators. They're on a different channel. So the Red Line's on its own radio channel that the people at the MIC listen to. And station managers are on a different channel with other people in that room, but yeah, that's where that breakdown in communication occurs a little bit.
One other thing I thought about, Chief, do you have anything else from your end? One other thing I thought about, I'm not sure if everybody's aware of, in terms of resources, right, to use, obviously the Metro maps are really good. Can you talk just quickly, because I think a lot of people probably don't know about it. I didn't know about it for the longest time until somebody told me in passing about the internal MCFRS map resources that overlay the stuff onto Google Maps, whether it's heavy rail, Metro, whatever it is. Can you just talk about how to access that?
Yeah, so that's on, and it's on the ECC website is probably the best way to get to it under the information tabs, I think. And I think that's something Lieutenant St. John maintains. But there's a couple of different Google Maps there. There's a river map, there's a rail map, trail map,
rural water supply
one,
gas lines. There's all kinds of
there's 4 or 5, and I think that's the best way to get to that. So as far as the rail map is concerned, that's what's really nice is it's heavy rail Metro, and I think it was Chief Blinkhorn that set all that up, right? And you've got it. He set it up, and very logical, right? Set up by parts, right? So you can unclick. Like if you're dealing with a heavy rail call, you can unclick all the Metro stuff, right? And now you've only got the heavy rail stuff, right? If you're looking for, like I think one of the sections is like all the ETS boxes or all the emergency exit shafts, right? If you know a specific thing you're trying to get to as a
maybe if you're the first unit officer, but if you're somebody coming from a distance or whatever else, it might be helpful to get that big picture. Cover things that haven't been covered before, connection, whatever the case might be. So,
and it's you pull it up on your phone, right? And you can probably see your location, you can see where you're going to go, and that just a helpful way to be able to navigate some of these places that are just real obscure.
Right. Cool. There was one other thing I was going to ask or bring up, and of course I forget what it is, but we're almost out of time anyway, so I'm sure I'll think of it as soon as we're off here. Is there anything else? We got like maybe 5 more minutes. Is there anything else that you guys think is critically important to hit along with these updates and new equipment?
Let's do the purple line stuff. Yeah. So yeah, that picture.
People
of the
have a lot of
purple line.
questions about it, and I think don't fully understand it. Right? People are like, oh, it's the purple line.
Yeah,
It's- When they first advertised it years ago, I was like, oh, it's another part of the metro, and no, it's not. Completely different, right?
Yeah, so that's probably the biggest thing to know is the purple line is not run by WMATA or Metro, right? It's run by the MTA, which is the Maryland Transit Authority, if I'm saying that right. Same authority that runs the light rail where I live in Baltimore and the subway system up there. So completely separate. So yeah, you can't call, like, this is the downfall, unfortunately, to that, right, is you can't call the Rock Fire Liaison at the MIC, right? Like, they're not going to have any clue what's going on, right? And thankfully, it's still not open yet, but it's a completely separate entity. It will be different in the sense that it is light rail and it's overhead catenary lines, which is how it supplies power to those cars. So that will be it'll be a learning curve for us when this comes in.
And it's coming down the pipe, and I don't mean to cut you off with that. It jogged my memory of what I was going to ask. So interface, right? Interface between heavy rail. We have an incident that interfaces with Metro, right? Whether it's a vehicle into the fence, whether it's something on the heavy rail on the CSX tracks that's happens to run parallel with the Metro tracks in that area. Whatever. Eventually, the purple line crosses. I'm sure it interfaces closely with Metro in certain areas. I know some of the names. There was like some work groups going back and forth, right? Because originally, like, some of them were named like XYZ Metro as the name of the purple line stop. And it's like, you can't really do that because somebody's going to call and say, somebody's got hit by a train at XYZ Metro station. They're the dispatcher there, but it's actually the purple line. Either way, I think most of that got fixed in work groups and stuff like that. But interface with Metro, how does that work? Same, basically, treat them completely separate and hopefully get everybody together?
So pull up, if you can pull up that picture once again of the Silver Spring Transit Center, those 2 pictures you just had. So I think it's a good example, right? The picture on the left, right? So the picture on the right is going to be the Purple Line station at Silver Spring, which is the top floor of the Silver Spring Transit Center, which is run by Metro, right? The picture on the left is also kind of the same general area, looking back at
Clear as mud.
Looking back at. That's looking at Metro. If you see the top set of tracks kind of on the right side of the picture there, that's the purple line. Below that is Metro and CSX. So what, in my opinion, and we're going to work through this right as it comes into the county, but an incident like in that picture, right, looking at that left picture, you probably should start by notifying all 3, right? If it's something significant, right, like brush fire on the tracks, right, or derailment, or we probably need to at least start the process of notifications to all 3 entities, and then we'll work out once we get there and figure out, like, okay, CSX is not affected at all, right? This, Metro is not affected at all, or hey, all 3 of these are affected, right? We need to just shut everything down until we figure this out and go from there. That's something that the rail officers are probably going to be heavily involved in.
Yeah, I mean, just the bottom line is nobody controls the other people's stuff, right? CSX is in charge of the CSX tracks. Now, Mark is a different story because they run on CSX tracks, right?
As well as Amtrak.
Right. Yeah. So but CSX owns that. Purple Line, PLTC, or Metro Transit is going to own Purple Line stuff, and WMATA is going to own Metro. And you got to treat them all separate.
We've always dealt with 2. Now it's going to be 3. Yeah, and how all that stuff with the purple line is, I think it's in process, but we're not aware of exactly how all that's going to play out yet.
And we got a while until it's running, so iron all those kinks out.
Yeah.
If you all want to pull up the screen grab of the Purple Line website. So I wanted to show this real quick. This is the Purple Line website, and as you watch this video play, if you just search Purple Line MTA Maryland, that'll pop up. You can actually sign up for anyone that works in the lower part of Battalion 2, Battalion 1. Click on that link there and it'll sign up for construction updates. So you can sign up by neighborhood. Don't do what I did and sign up for everyone because then you just get spammed with a bunch of emails. But do it for your area, right? Like if you work at Station 6, sign up for the ones close to there. And then you'll kind of get it's every week or 2 when they're doing updates, especially like downtown Silver Spring right now. They'll close a street for, whatever, right?
A day or 2. I know for a while they were going every day, like around Piney Branch and checking all that out because it was changing.
So yeah, you'll get updates on that, which is kind of just nice to see and know. So
Awesome. Cool. Well, that was great information, guys. Thank you very much for joining us. Hopefully, everybody, if you weren't watching live, hopefully you guys can review this with the shift, especially once the new equipment comes out, or even before, if you just want a preview of what's to come. Get out there and train on it. Get in the Metro maps, look at them. It's always good. It's not something we're in every day, so it's something I haven't been in them in a minute. It's definitely good for familiarity's sake, just to get in them and look through them, use the rail officers as resources. But thank you guys again for coming in and going over this stuff with us. For everybody else, we'll see you next time. We don't have a definitive date yet. We are working on hopefully launching a podcast style episode idea to bring in some more outside people. That's in the works. I don't know if that's going to be our next episode or not, but we are planning something for either the end of the month or beginning of December, and we'll get you that date and as soon as we can. But thank you again, guys, and everybody enjoy the rest of your day.